It is 3 a.m. The world outside your window has finally gone quiet. The demands of the day, the noise of the streets, the expectations of your peers, they have all retreated into the shadows. And yet, you are awake. You are lying there, bathed in the artificial blue light of your phone screen. Your thumb moves mechanically, scrolling through videos, reading headlines, consuming content you will not remember in 10 minutes. You tell yourself you are just winding down. You tell yourself you are just bored. But we both know that isn't true, is it? You are not scrolling to be entertained. You are scrolling to be distracted. Because you know that the moment you put the phone down, the moment you let the silence truly enter the room, a specific thought will begin to creep in from the corners of your mind. It is a thought that tightens your chest on Sunday evenings. It is a cold, sinking feeling that hits you in the middle of a happy memory, reminding you that the moment is already gone. It is the crushing, absolute realization of your own expiration date. Welcome to the psychology of Memento Mori. If you found this video, it is likely because you carry a secret weight. While those around you seem perfectly content to live in a state of permanent distraction, obsessed with their next purchase, their next promotion, or their social status, you find yourself paralyzed by the big picture. You look at your parents, and instead of just seeing their faces, you see the aging process accelerating. You look at your own hands, and you see the future dust they will become. You feel a profound sense of nostalgia for moments that haven't even ended yet. Psychologists might label this as thanatophobia, the fear of death. Or perhaps they would call it existential anxiety. But let us be precise. What you are feeling is not a disorder. It is not a malfunction in your brain chemistry. This constant, low-level hum of dread, this inability to ignore the clock ticking on your wall, is actually a sign of a hyper-aware consciousness. You are suffering because you are awake in a world that prefers to sleepwalk. Tonight, we are not going to run from this fear. We are not going to offer you empty platitudes about living in the moment. Instead, we are going to dissect this darkness. We are going to look directly at the thing you have been hiding from. Because, paradoxically, the only cure for the fear of time is to stare directly into the abyss of it. You have likely tried to talk about this before. Perhaps you mentioned it to a friend over coffee, or tried to express this hollow feeling to a partner. And what happened? They told you to cheer up. They told you that you are overthinking it. They looked at you with that specific mix of pity and discomfort, as if you had just confessed to a crime. Modern society has pathologized the awareness of death. We live in a culture of toxic positivity, a culture that is obsessed with eternal youth, productivity, and the relentless pursuit of happiness. In this world, to think about the end is considered a symptom of depression. To acknowledge the shadow is seen as a failure of character. So, you learned to be quiet. You learned to wear the mask. You participate in the small talk. You laugh at the jokes. You plan for a retirement you might never see. All while carrying this secret knowledge that the ground beneath your feet is temporary. But let me tell you what they do not understand. Your anxiety is not a sickness. It is a reaction to the absurdity of their denial. The reason you feel alienated is not because you are broken. It is because you are the only one in the room who is actually paying attention. Most people live in a state of death denial. They construct elaborate fortresses of distraction, careers, status, entertainment, to shield themselves from the inevitable. They are sleepwalking toward the cliff edge, dreaming that they can fly. You, on the other hand, you have woken up before the alarm. You have peered behind the curtain. The weight you feel on your chest is the weight of reality. In a world of comfortable lies, the truth is always heavy. Think about the Stoics. Think about the great existential philosophers. They did not view the contemplation of death as morbid. They viewed it as the ultimate act of courage. By facing the finiteness of your existence, you are not being negative. You are stripping away the trivial. While others cry over spilled coffee or rage about traffic jams, you perceive these things for what they are, meaningless noise in the face of eternity. Your perspective has been forcefully widened. It is painful, yes. It is lonely, undoubtedly. But do not mistake this pain for a defect. It is the price of admission for a deeper life. You are not depressed because you see the end. You are simply unanesthetized. To understand why this fear paralyzes you, we must leave the realm of modern psychology and descend into the older, deeper waters of philosophy. We must uncover the hidden variables that govern your relationship with time. The first variable lies in a misconception identified by the Roman Stoic Seneca. 2,000 years ago, in his essay On the Shortness of Life, Seneca observed a tragedy that perfectly mirrors your 3 a.m. anxiety. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." The pain you feel is not caused by the shortness of life. It is caused by the mismanagement of your consciousness. You treat time as if it were a limitless resource. You kill time scrolling through screens. You give hours to people you do not like. You postpone your true desires for a someday that is mathematically unlikely to arrive. The Stoics argue that your anxiety is simply your soul's accounting system alerting you to a deficit. This brings us to the concept of Memento Mori. Remember that you must die. History has turned this phrase into something grim, a skull on a desk. But for the Stoics, it was not a threat. It was a tool for prioritization. Without death, life has no urgency. Without a deadline, there is no reason to finish the artwork, no reason to say, "I love you," no reason to leave the job that drains you. Death is not the robber of meaning, it is the creator of meaning. Scarcity creates value. Your time is valuable precisely because it runs out. However, logic alone rarely cures fear. To understand the visceral dread you feel in your gut, we must turn to Carl Jung and analytical psychology. Jung proposed a terrifying idea. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. But let us adapt this to you. The greatest burden you are bearing right now is your own unlived life. The hidden variable driving your anxiety is not the fear that your heart will stop beating. It is the fear that you will die without ever having started. This is what Jung calls the shadow. Every ambition you suppressed because it was risky, every passion you ignored to be practical, every truth you swallowed to keep the peace, they did not disappear. They retreated into the shadow. And now, in the silence of the night, they return as demons. They masquerade as the fear of death, but they are actually the ghosts of your potential, screaming to be born. So, where does this leave us? Trapped between the Stoic realization of wasted time and the Jungian weight of potential. It leaves us in the nigredo. In ancient alchemy, the first stage of creating the philosopher's stone was called the nigredo, the blackening. It is a process of decomposition, putrefaction, and burning. The material must be broken down completely before it can be transformed into gold. This depression you feel, this isolation, this obsession with mortality, this is your nigredo. You are not mentally ill. You are in the process of spiritual fermentation. The you that was constructed by society, the you that cares about likes, status, and the validation of others, is rotting away. And it hurts. Rotting always hurts. But this decomposition is necessary. You cannot build a Stoic citadel on a foundation of sand. The anxiety is the fire burning away the trivial, leaving only what is essential. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger called this state Sein zum Tode, being towards death. He argued that most people live in an inauthentic mode, lost in the they, the crowd. They only become authentic when they confront their own finitude. By staring at the ceiling and fearing the end, you are inadvertently doing the work of a philosopher. You are stripping away the illusions. You are preparing to live, perhaps for the first time, not as a passenger in your own life, but as a driver who sees the cliff edge and chooses to drive beautifully anyway. The pain is not a stop sign. It is a compass. It points directly toward the things you have neglected. The fear is simply energy, trapped and labeled incorrectly. You do not need to fix this fear. You need to alchemize it. You need to take this raw, terrified energy and use it as fuel. If you knew, truly knew, that you had 1 year left, the trivial concerns that plague your daily life would vanish instantly. The embarrassment of posting your art? Gone. The fear of rejection? Gone. The hesitation to speak your truth? Evaporated. Death is the ultimate permission slip. It frees you from the expectations of a world that will continue long after you are gone. We are nearing the end of our time together tonight. But before you scroll away back into the noise of the digital world, I want to offer you a space to put down the weight you have been carrying. This channel is not just a broadcast. It is a sanctuary for the quiet ones. I want to conduct a small experiment. Look into the hidden variable we discussed, your unlived life. If the clock were to stop for you tonight, what is the one thing you would regret never saying? What is the art you never made, the apology you never gave, Do not let that regret stay in the shadows. Write it down in the comments below. Treat this comment section not as a public forum, but as a collective confessional. By writing it down, you are no longer hiding from it. You are acknowledging it. And in acknowledging it, you begin the process of alchemy. You are not alone in the dark. We are all just waiting for the sun to rise. If you seek further silence and understanding, you know where to find us. Memento Mori.